channel. I'm so glad that you joined me again on our journey about art journaling. If you watched my first post last Monday, you'll know that I'm on a journey with you to create an art journal, from the very basics of what you need for supplies and tools to how to make your own, or what you should look for if you go out and buy an art journal or a sketchbook, so you can get started. And today I just wanted to talk about the what, the why, and some of the supplies that you might want to gather up before next week. If you remember, this is the one that I created myself out of fabric and some wallpaper, just wallpaper, and a bunch of just random pieces of paper, different varying thicknesses. It's super chunky and it's going to be really awesome by the time we have filled it. So we go into what is an art journal, and what's the difference between an art journal and maybe a junk journal or a sketchbook or a scrapbook. Well, to be honest, an art journal is really what you make of it. It can look more like a scrapbook, or it can more look like a junk journal if you fill it with some pages like I did here, just scrap paper. But an art journal at its core has art components to it. And you don't have to be an artist or a journalist to do an art journal, and that's the beauty of it. Art journaling is all about finding some time in the day just for you to get down your thoughts and start feeling good about what's happened in the day, what might be coming up, a memory, maybe even a bad thought, who knows. But art journaling is really about getting in like ink and paints and papers and collage onto a page, and then if you're feeling like it, you can journal over top of that. So you might write long stories in your art journal if you love to journal. You might write one word. You might write your favorite quote or something that inspires you for that day that you don't want to forget. I have a lot of quote books because sometimes I don't feel like journaling and I just want to have a quote that suits the mood of the day. So I would recommend getting a quote book, or looking up quotes on the internet and starting your own quote book journal, really. An art journal is anything that you're creating art in and journaling in. But don't let either of those two things scare you. You don't have to be an artist, like I said. You don't have to be a writer. I've showed you some journals before, and I'm going to show you a few of my journals now as well, just to show you the differences of what an art journal can be, in my opinion. I mean, you can search the internet and find other opinions on what an art journal is, but really, for me, it's about adding some sort of medium to the page, whether it's paper, paint, crayons, pencil crayons, whatever it may be, and then adding your journaling on top. And then after the what, so we know what a journal is why are we doing it? And there's lots of reasons why we're doing it. And one is about self-expression. This is your own time, your own words, your own creativity, and it provides you a place that you might be able to express yourself without a lot of words, maybe with color or something like that. Or maybe you're going to be writing down some things that it's hard to say. You don't want to say those things out loud, but you certainly feel comfortable enough to write them or express them in art. And all of these things are so good for you as you release all these thoughts and good vibes and bad vibes onto your paper, onto your art journal. You will be amazed at how you like this process. And trust me, if you stick with it, you will really love the outcome of your art journal. Because one of the things that we will say from every single class is that there's no judgment. You have to just go and stop overthinking it. It's one thing that I certainly do myself, is I overthink it. I try to be a perfectionist on every page, but that's not what this is about. This is just about creating, having that passion, and just that joyful experience of that tactileness of a journal and paints, and getting it so thick and awesome, and getting those memories down on a piece of paper. And that's why. The why is because it's fun, it's great release, it is just a way that we can express ourselves and have fun doing it. About supplies, from basic supplies to more advanced supplies. I mean, you don't have to have any of these things. Well, I mean, you're gonna have to have a journal and some writing equipment, but other than that, it's up to you how deep you want to go into this. I'm going to show you the basics first, and then some things that you might want to get into your collection later on. And I'm hoping that you can gather these things in the next week or so you'll be ready to do the next step. And the next step for me is really going to show you how to prep a store-made journal or create your own journal, and just with some simple stitching and finding some papers that you might have, from magazines to newspapers to just like printer paper that you might have around, or maybe you have some watercolor paper, or you have some dollar store sketch pads or something like that. I use dollar store a lot because I don't want people to think they have to put a lot of money into this. I mean, you can certainly go on Amazon or into an art store and you can buy high-end everything, but you certainly don't have to, and that's not the point of this. The point of this is to get your journaling in a book and have fun doing it. So, some basic supplies. I always would recommend a glue stick, scissors. A good pair of scissors is really important. Make sure they're sharp. If you're going to be doing a lot of fussy cutting, as they call it, like cutting out maybe some detailed flowers or some things in magazines that you want to collage into your art journal, make sure that they're just not really huge, clumsy scissors. So a nice pair of scissors. A pencil is always a good idea, with an eraser. Any kind of pencil, doesn't have to be a mechanical pencil, it can just be a regular pencil. I always like some sort of black ink, and I also like some sort of white ink. I don't have my white pen here, but white ink and black ink is good for your journal, and you'll see why. If you have varying degrees of thicknesses of pens, that's also good, because you can vary your words in your journal using just simple pens. A ruler is good if you wanted to cut some paper or measure anything for your art journal. I really do not go a day without using my paper cutter. I love my paper cutter. If you do not have a paper cutter and you're out to get a paper cutter, I would highly recommend one that has an extendable arm, so you can measure bigger pieces of paper, like the 12 by 12 scrapbooking pads, for example. So those are really basic supplies, and of course basic supplies, you need to have the journal. So there's a couple of different varieties. One is make your own, as I've shown you a few times. I make journals out of old books, so you could definitely do a journal from an old book. This is my fern one that I showed last week. It's just a collection of papers, but it's just from an old book. I took out the pages and then just did a simple stitch. This is a store-bought watercolor book, so has a nice elastic around that to get chunky, and then has just nice thick watercolor paper. When you're looking at books and paper, obviously the more money you spend, the nicer the book is, but you don't have to spend a lot of money. Even the dollar store has watercolor pads. Watercolor pads are nice because they hold the inks and the watercolor and the paints. So they're just a bit more durable. It doesn't bleed into the pages that go behind them. But again, we're going to be creating an art journal, and we can cover up those mistakes. Like, there's no mistakes in art journaling, really. We can just learn from them, move on, cover them up, and have a great time doing it. This is a spiral bound sketchbook. You could easily do that for an art journal. It's so intimidating, all the white pages, but I'm going to give you some tips to get over that. I know I have problems with that myself too, but we will get there. This one I showed last week as well. It's out of one piece of paper. So an art journal can be very small as well. It doesn't have to be big and intimidating. I wanted to do a big chunky one because I'm really excited about filling it this year and just keep on going. I have times where I'm doing a lot of art journaling and times that I don't. So I'm trying to motivate myself as well by going through this whole process. So those are the few types of art journals. I'm going to show you as well. This is just a basic composition book from the dollar store. There's a lot of YouTubers out there that use a composition book for an art journal. There's a few things that I'm going to show you next week on how to turn one of these into an art journal, because the pages are quite thin. So you might not want to start with this, but I'm still saying it's an option to have a like just a simple composition book with really thin pages. But when you start with this, just realize it's not watercolor paper, it's not mixed media paper, so it's not as thick. The other thing that you'll want to make sure that you have if you want to do any painting is some paints. And these are just paints from the dollar store, but you could go you could go higher end. Definitely, they're acrylic paints. I think actually these are from Walmart. So acrylic paints, I would recommend using matte. So these ones all say that they're matte acrylic, which means that they're not shiny on the page. When they're shiny on the page, they tend to stick and pull up the paint and rip the pages a little bit. So we don't want that to happen. So we look for matte acrylic paint. Watercolor would be nice to have as well. Watercolor is just another great paint to add different look to your pages. This is an inexpensive set from the dollar store, or if you wanted to, you could go a higher end watercolor set. This is a koi, I think, and the traditional watercolor hard watercolor set. Acrylic paint markers are a really amazing addition to your arsenal of art supplies for art journaling. So these are Posca pens. Posca pens are quite expensive. I don't know if they have an equivalent at the dollar store, but there's certainly equivalents to acrylic marker paint pens. So paint pens is what you're going to be looking up if you want to find out what to buy. I would highly recommend a black, a white, and then a couple of colors that you really like. They come in a ton of colors and a ton of thicknesses. I think this is kind of the medium thickness. But yeah, so that will be a lot of fun to add to the pages because it works like a pen, but you're painting, and it's opaque, and you'll really like using them. But again, that's just more of a nice to have. You definitely don't have to have it. One of these, this is a great addition to a junk journal too. This is a die cut machine. I've done some videos on die cut machines. I really like them because there's lots of different dies you can get. Out a variety of different images and words and different things that you can add to your art journal. So that's fun. But again, only that's a nice to have. You definitely don't have to have something like that. Scrap paper is good to have. I keep every little scrap of every time I cut paper, I keep the scraps. I had so much I had to donate a whole bunch because I couldn't keep scrap paper. If you do anything with paper, keep it in a bin like this, or if you have a better way to organize, even better. And nice to have is if you went to the secondhand store and bought discarded books, don't spend a lot of money on them, but if you spend like $1 or a couple dollars on books, you have so many pages in these books that it will give you a really nice variety of pages that you can use in your art journal that will just break up the whiteness in the pages. So I recommend that. Washi tape is a fun addition to any art journal because it adds instant color and texture to a page. So that's another thing. Makeup sponges are really great because they really help with using stencils. So stencils are another thing that I would recommend as a nice to have, but as we go through the series, I'll show you different things that you can use for stencils. You can make your own stencils. Dollar store has lots of stencils now. So I recommend that, adds some depth to the page. Stamps, I have lots of stamps. So stamps are a great one, and also a stamp pad, of course, just to add some different elements to your page. Stickers, anything like that to add some things. And go with what you're passionate about. Like, don't just buy things for the sake of buying things. Buy things that really relate to you or speak to you as you're shopping, or when you're going through things at home like magazines and things like that, that you want to cut out different images. If you've never done an art journal before, you right now have no idea what your style is. If you Google art journals, it's crazy, the world of art journaling out there. There are some that are very overwhelming and very beautiful, and that might be your style and you might just nail it as soon as you start. And others are more simple, like a photograph with some words around it and some ink on a page. So, but I just want to encourage you to find your own style and take your time doing that. Like, we'll do lots of pages, and some of them you might not like very much, but it's all part of the learning. And you can always go back and cover up pages or add to it later on once you decide what your style is or what you want to do with that art journal. And remember, art journaling is for you. This is not something that you have to create and run out and show everybody. You can certainly show people if you want, but this is it's like a diary, like a journal, but with lots of different colors and papers and lots of fun stuff on the pages. So you certainly are not making this for anybody else but you, unless you're making it for someone else. So again, there's the flexibility. Maybe you're making it for somebody as a gift or something like that too. But having said all of that, I really want you to get excited about gathering up some supplies. Oh, the other thing I wanted to recommend was you could find old atlases as well at secondhand bookstores, and no one wants atlases anymore except for me, I think. So I would recommend atlases. They're beautiful, they're big, so we can cover a lot of space with the pages, so it's lots of fun there. And lastly, I just wanted to mention that if you have a cutting board is a good one to have too. So a cutting board just saves your table if you're working on a table, because we're going to get inky. A tube or a box of wax paper is also good too, because we can cover our pages and stop the spread of paint as we start putting ink onto our pages. So with all of that, have some fun gathering some supplies. If you have a stackable magazines that you want to consider using as collaging in your journal, then that's great too. And gather those things together. And again, you don't have to spend a lot of money on this. And next week we will go through the process of making a small journal by hand, and also prepping one that you might have bought from the dollar store or Walmart or whatever art store is close to you. And I'm just really excited about sharing this journey with you, and I hope that you're really excited too. Google art journals and have a look at what you will be doing, and I think you'll have a great time doing that. And I hope you have a great week. I'm going to leave this video with a quick art journal spread that I worked on today, and it's just really about starting and making art, and I hope you enjoy it. Thanks everybody. See you next week. Bye.